Deep within the orbital shipyards of Sol Prime, an immense cavern of gleaming metal and humming machinery stretched farther than the eye could track. Starlight filtered through reinforced viewport panels, dancing off the hulls of dreadnoughts in various stages of assembly. But none drew more attention than the Hurricane-class battleship, suspended by magnetic cranes like a leviathan poised for birth. Engineers and technicians worked in hushed reverence. Round its colossal form, every movement precise, every gesture choreographed. This was not merely the construction of a warship, but the forging of a legend. Dr. Arya Celine stood on a raised catwalk, her cobalt eyes scanning the vessel's lines with a blend of scientific pride and maternal protectiveness. She wore the Federation's emerald-plated field jacket, its insignia an equilateral triangle, enfolding a stylized storm cloud gleaming over her heart. Behind her, banks of holo displays projected fractal schematics of the ship's hyperstorm reactor core, coils of superconducting filaments weaving through gravitic resonators, all centered on the Stormbreaker cannon. The diagrams pulsed in time with the reactor's low-level hum, a heartbeat swelling with potential energy. Status report, Arya called to her lead systems engineer, Lieutenant Commander Felix Arlo. He tapped at his datapad, brow furrowed beneath the forge light. All primary conduits are within tolerance. Hyperstorm reactor is stabilized at 23% capacity. Gravimetric aligners are holding secure. We're green across the board, Doctor. Arya nodded. Though a flicker of concern crossed her face, we must never become complacent. This ship carries the hopes of 60 colonies. One failure. Her voice caught on the word, as if the weight of consequence had lodged in her throat. At her side, Captain Jonas Ree waited in quiet composure. His uniform was unadorned but immaculate, rank insignia on the collar, Federation crest on the breast, and a single commendation ribbon for valor in the Andromeda skirmishes. He was tall, his posture rock steady. Where Arya's brilliance was tempered by worry, Ree's was tempered by purpose. He crossed to the viewport overlooking the shipyard's inner docks, arms clasped behind his back. Doctor, he said, voice measured yet warm, you've built more than a weapon. You've given us a bulwark against annihilation. We need this ship to inspire confidence as much as to instill fear. Arya met his gaze, then gestured at the ship. It will, Captain. But we must remember, inspiration can be as fragile as the minds it bolsters. Ree offered a faint half-smile, as if recalling some private joke. Then let us strengthen both steel and spirit. The announcement of the Hurricane's impending launch circled the Federation Council like electrified gossip. News feeds buzzed. Hurricane-class dreadnought nears completion. Senators sparred over its cost. Admirals over its tactical doctrine. Colonial governors over its promise. For years, the frontier worlds had endured pirate raids, supply line disruptions, and the creeping menace of the Zyra Collective's biomechanical war host. No fighter wing or cruiser flotilla had tipped the balance. Chancellor Vega arrived to inspect the hull personally, flanked by her aide de camp and a phalanx of security officers disguised as diplomatic staff. She moved along the hangar floor with regal poise, her silver hair a soft halo under the spotlights. As she reached the prow, she extended a manicured hand toward the Stormbreaker's armored casing. Is it true, she asked, voice low enough that only Arya could hear, that this cannon can channel a hyperstorm bolt across the void? Arya swallowed, recalling the first test in the deep space proving grounds. We channeled a controlled implosion into subspace field lines. The resulting discharge could, in theory, level a continental landmass on contact with a planetary surface. She paused. But it has never been fired at full charge in a live scenario. The Chancellor's storm gray eyes glinted with both awe and apprehension. We will not unleash it casually, she vowed. That power is our last line. Let us hope we never must resort to it. At that moment, a horn blared. The hangar gates rolled aside, revealing the pale blue orb of Sol Prime rising in the background. A plume of white gold light washed over the Hurricane's hull, igniting hidden layers of reflective armor in a dazzling display. Technicians rushed to secure loose cables. Security officers straightened their ranks. The journalists in the observation gallery fell silent, breath caught in collective anticipation. 10-9 hate, The countdown boomed through the hangar's acoustic dampeners, each digit amplified until it reverberated like a storm drum. Rhea and Arya joined hands an unspoken alliance of science and command while across the bays, the Federation fleet began to slip its moorings. Cruisers, frigates, support vessels, all arrayed like an honor guard. On 3, the Stormbreaker coils flared to life, tracing electric veins along the barrel's exterior. The hum crescendoed into a scream. On 1, the entire ship shuddered as if catching breath, and on 0, the storm ignited. A halo of charged particles, electric blue and violet, erupted from the cannon, coalescing into a spinning toroid. In microseconds, the toroid collapsed inward, creating a cascade of hyperstorm energy that rippled through the hangar's vacuum. Lights flickered, the steel girders groaned, and technicians braced themselves against the concussive aftershock. When the echo faded, the Hurricane stood silent, her hull etched with the glow of residual plasma. A whisper of awe passed through the crowd. Rhea stepped forward, voice ringing clear. Let it be known throughout our colonies, this is more than a ship. It is humanity's defiance against the dark. May the storm within guide us to victory. That evening, as technicians conducted post-test diagnostics, Dr. Celine wandered the silent corridors of the Hurricane's lower decks. She paused before a vent, one she had personally installed during the earliest construction phases. Through its grill, she could hear the reactor core's steady pulse, a low hum that resonated deep in her chest. It was the voice of her creation, ever vigilant, ever ready. She closed her eyes and allowed herself a moment of reflection. Memories of the early design meetings, of sleepless nights spent analyzing reactor stability equations, of heated debates over the ethical implications of wielding such power. She had argued then that deterrence required force, that a single demonstration of overwhelming might could save millions of lives. Yet standing here now, hearing that soft hum, she felt the weight of her own argument. Nearby, a maintenance drone shuddered as it inspected robotic arms, oblivious to its creator's turmoil. Arya watched it for a long moment, then straightened. Tomorrow, she would review the final ballistics calibration. Tomorrow, she would prepare for the ship's maiden voyage beyond Sol Prime's safety. But tonight, she allowed herself one small solace, the knowledge that, should the frontier worlds cry out for deliverance, she had given them a storm. High above, in the captain's quarters, Jonas reclined in a zero-G lounge chair, staring out at the starscape framed by the viewport. He traced constellations with a fingertip, mapping the unseen threats that lurked beyond empathic sensors. He thought of the pirate lords who had sacked Frontier Station Delta, of the Xyrus seed ships carving worlds into twisted oases of living steel. He thought of Lieutenant Vass's steady hand at his side, of Arya Celine's fiery intellect, of the thousands of souls who would sail with him into the unknown. A soft chime signaled an incoming message. He tapped the console. It was the Chancellor's private communique. The text scrolled across the panel. Captain Rhea, the Federation entrusts the Hurricane to your command. Represent us well. May the storm guide your hand, and may your courage never falter. Vaguer he exhaled, fingers curling into a fist. He pictured the battles to come, the fleet maneuvers, the silent prayers whispered before the jump into hell. And yet, in that moment, he felt calm, not because he doubted the dangers, but because he believed in the Hurricane, in her power, her promise, and in the hands of those who would wield her. He closed the message and stood, boots clicking across the deck plating. Tomorrow at dawn he would brief the crew. Tomorrow he would take the Hurricane into the black. But for now, he allowed himself one indulgence, a silent pledge to the ship that would carry him and countless others through the storms that awaited. Rest well, old friend, he murmured to the viewport. For tomorrow we unleash the gale. And somewhere deep within the Hurricane's armored heart, the hyperstorm reactor thrummed in agreement. The storm had awakened. 6 months had passed since the Hurricane's thunderous debut in the orbital hangar of Sol Prime. Each day aboard the dreadnought had been a crucible of drills, system calibrations, and simulated engagements designed to probe every weakness in her armor and every flaw in her command protocols. Captain Jonas Rhea's crew had become an organism unto itself, officers and enlisted specialists moving in lockstep, guided by the ship's AI sentinel, Sable, whose whispered status updates were as familiar as the hum of the hyperstorm reactor. Yet, no amount of training could replicate the raw chaos of combat in the Outer Rim, where law and order existed only at the whim of those strong enough to enforce it. This was the frontier, a sprawling expanse of mining colonies, remote research outposts, and merchant convoy corridors teeming with the stakes of interstellar commerce. It was there at the heart of the Kurian trade corridor that the Hurricane would make her first true test. Departure from Sol Prime's final pre-deployment briefing took place in the ship's war room, a cavernous chamber, surrounded by 7 meters of reactive armor plating and lined with holoscreens. Admiral Selwyn Virak, commander of the Outer Rim Task Force, stood at the head of the central projection table. His face, scarred by decades of frontier skirmishes, was grave. Efficient pirates calling themselves the Nightshade Syndicate have seized control node Delta 7 and are extorting tolls on all freighters passing through, he reported. Holo images of shattered cargo haulers spun in the air. Our regular patrol flotillas have been stymied by their guerrilla tactics. We cannot negotiate with them, and the local militias lack the firepower to dislodge entrenched defenses. Captain re-inclined his head. The Hurricane's Stormbreaker cannon and iron-tipped broadsides make her uniquely qualified to break their lines, Admiral. What is our objective? Primary objective, retake node Delta 7 and open the corridor. Secondary, capture or neutralize Nightshade leadership. We suspect their base is on the asteroid Wormfield in Sector 213, an ideal hideout for hit and run. Raiders, Virak's gaze hardened. Your ship will act as spearhead. Support arrives in 3 days, but the element of surprise is yours. Strike swiftly. Behind Lieutenant Mara Vass, his executive officer, tapped her console. System diagnostics confirmed that all weapons and shield capacitors were at optimum levels. Stormbreaker cannon calibrated for suborbital bombardment, she reported. Broadside arrays primed. Turbolaser drones standing by. Very good, replied. He looked around the table at his command staff, the tactical chief, the communications officer, the engineering lead, all of whom met his gaze with steady resolve. This is the moment we've trained for. We'll proceed to the asteroid field at high warp and deploy our stealth drones for reconnaissance. Upon confirmation of enemy positions, we'll hit hard and fast. Dismiss to 2. Voyage through hyperspace. Months later, the Hurricane's massive hyperstorm drives flared to life. In the jewel-bright corridors of hyperspace, the dreadnought became a streak of violet light, carving a corridor through the cosmic tapestry. On the bridge, the luminous heavens tumbled past the viewports in kaleidoscopic hues. Approaching exit point in 3, 2, 1, Sable intoned. The hyperspace field dissipated in a silent roar of particles, and the Hurricane emerged into the cobalt glow of the Kurian corridor. Before them lay the Wormfield, hundreds of jagged asteroids, some larger than small moons, their pitted surfaces streaked with mining scars. Amid the labyrinth, dozens of improvised pirate platforms bristled with anti-ship batteries and cloaked missile bunkers, shadows that flitted between rocks. Stealth drones away, reordered. On either side of the prow, 12 sleek, torpedo-shaped drones launched from their bays and vaulted into the field. Each carried a quantum mesh scanner to map pirate hull signatures and electromagnetic jamming zones. Lieutenant Vass watched the live feed on her holo display. Drones report 3 primary strongpoints, each with dual ion cannon emplacements and fighter launch tubes. Communications jammed across standard frequencies. Hostile vessel count, 20 for light cruisers, 19 corvettes, and an estimated 90 to skimmer fighters. Nodded. They've got numbers, but no discipline. We'll punch through their perimeter and collapse the network. Weapons control. Unleash gravity net warheads on the outer battery emplacements. Let the vines of gravity choke their guns. Within seconds, the Hurricane's underbelly missile bays opened. Warheads shaped like obsidian seeds shot forth, trailing filaments of micrograviton particles. Upon impact, the warheads bloomed into expandable nets that wrapped around the ion cannons, severing their rotors in a cascade of overloads. The field erupted in plumes of white-hot sparks. Pirate positions crackled as ion shields collapsed from the cliffs of rock. Fighters leapt to engage, swarms of winged silhouettes that dove toward the hurricane's flanks. Aye. The storm unleashed Captain remained unfazed. Point defense. Lasers neutralize fighters. Tactical grid marked the largest cruiser convoy. Full salvo on my mark. A lattice of green laser bolts lanced out, halting the fighters in bloomed spirals of shrapnel. Above the devastation, the massive cruiser group tried to reorganize, fire Stormfisher broadside, recommanded, and secondary gravity pulse cannons synchronize at 75% yield. The Hurricane's starboard batteries flared. Crimson arcs of charged plasma leapt from the supercooled emitter plates, streaking toward the enemy. At each impact, cruisers shuddered, their deep-belted armor plated in molten fissures. Amid the firefight, the dreadnought's hyperstorm reactor began to pulse faster, its internal coils humming with a rising pitch. Sable's calm voice carried an undertone of concern. Reactor temperature rising, pressure at 92%. Let it climb, re-snapped. We're here to deliver a storm. He activated the Stormbreaker cannon's secondary firing circuits. The ship shuddered as colossal conduits rerouted power from the engines and shield generators directly into the cannon's coils. The magnitude of the energy spike crackled like a thunderclap across the hull. Target that battery. Cluster near asteroid P-17, reordered. On the viewports, the cluster of cannons glowed a defiant orange amid the rubble. Firing in 3, 2, 1, Sable counted down. A lance of electric violet erupted from the cannon's muzzle, transforming the distant field into a supernova of raw energy. The asteroid fissured in half, sending a storm of debris cascading outward. Every nearby pirate vessel was hammered by the shockwave. When the energy dissipated, silence blanketed the bridge. Dozens of pirate ships lay dead in the void, shards of metal drifting like cold constellations. Lieutenant Vass exhaled. Status? Reactor at maximum safe threshold. Shields at 83%. Hull breaches, minimal localized repairs are underway, the engineering officer reported. Ree allowed himself a rare smile. Excellent. Now, sweep the field for survivors and gather any intel we can retrieve. We proceed to node Delta 7. The corridor reopens on my say. 4. Retaking the node an hour later. The Hurricane emerged from the asteroid field into the open water of space. Before them hovered node Delta 7, a gargantuan control station, 600 meters across, bristling with antenna rays and solar wing sails. Black smoke curled from damaged sections, and the station's inner docking bays were jammed with pirate corvettes. Node defenses still active, Lieutenant Vass reported, to autonomous turrets and for long-range missile platforms. Hangar shields online. Deploy the boarding pods. Reordered. We'll disable their control grid from the inside. Tactical Squad Bravo. Prepare to breach. Escort them with drone support. Below decks, Marines outfitted with grav-boosted armor and microfusion rifles clambered into sleek, club-shaped boarding pods. The pods separated from the Hurricanes, ventral bays, and rocketed toward the station, surrounded by protective swarms of defense drones. On board the station, alarms blared in shrill protest. Pirate sentries scrambled, firing through corridor bulkheads as Tactical Bravo materialized in a white flash of transporter. Orcs, the Marines advanced in perfect formation, breaching bulkheads with concussive charges that sent wooden crates and data terminals flying. Simultaneously, drone swarms disabled external missile racks and turrets, severing power coupling and peeling away armor plating with precision EMP pulses. The station's massive hydraulics groaned as hangar shields flickered and collapsed. Within 15 minutes, Tactical Bravo had secured the central control nexus, a vaulted chamber ringed with holographic consoles. Corporal Anna Trellick, yellow-haired and fierce, slammed her boot against the primary access panel. Captain, we're in. She crackled over comms, rebooting the core. Pirates surrendering. Ree's voice crackled back. Hold position. I'm sending a boarding party to oversee custody. Well done. Moments later, Captain Ree, Lieutenant Vass, and Commander Nuren led a team of Marines through the final airlock. They found pirate crews disheveled, weary, outgunned lining up against the far wall, surrendering rusty guns with gloved hands. Strings of energy cuffs clinked as they fell into place. On the control deck, Ree pressed the override key on the station's command console. Power rerouted through Federation protocols. Once dead systems sparked alive. Docking clamps released. Conveyors hummed. Communications rays opened channels. In the voice of the station's new AI, the message sounded both polite and imperious.
Welcome, Captain Jonas Ree of F. Hurricane. Docking bays 1 through 12 are secured. All civilian traffic may resume passage. Thank you for choosing Korean Trade Corridor Node Delta 7, V. Aftermath and reflection back aboard the Hurricane. The bridge crew watched as commerce shuttles resumed their glide through the corridor. Convoys of cargo transports laden with ores, crystals, and exotic biosamples passed in orderly ranks, escorted by patrolling frigates. Colonists watching from surface screens cheered. An entire star system breathed a collective sigh of relief. Not bad for our first engagement, Lieutenant Vass said quietly, eyes lingering on the holomap of the corridor. Ree allowed himself a moment of pride. We delivered exactly what we promised, a hurricane to sweep away the filth. His attention shifted to the damage reports, scrolling on the tactical console. Several minor hull breaches, a handful of scorched panels, but overall, Hurricane had emerged unscathed. He tapped a command to Sable, initiate field repairs. Reinforce armor plating in Section C9. Prepare for resupply at Outpost Onyx, Sable acknowledged. Repairs underway. Estimated completion, 8 hours. Ree turned to face his XO. Schedule a debrief with Admiral Vierick. I want a full assessment enemy losses, prisoner intel, system security upgrades. Then I want us back at training drills. The Korean corridor is just the beginning. Vass nodded. Understood, sir? And the crew? Ree's gaze drifted to the viewport, where the pale glow of Delta 7's solar sails caught the dying light of a distant sun. They've earned a moment's rest. Tomorrow will remind the galaxy what it means to stand under a Terran hurricane. As the Hurricane resumed her patrol course through the newly liberated corridor, the Dreadnought's hyperstorm reactor thrummed like a living heart, a promise of storms yet to come, and a warning to any who dared threaten the freedom of the Frontier Asterisk. The Andromos Rift was a wound in the fabric of space, a vast nebular trench where ion storms raged unceasingly, painting the void in shifting hues of violet and emerald. It was here, amid fractured asteroids and lightning-charged plasma clouds, that Admiral Tsoni of the Zira Collective elected to confront the hurricane. Intelligence had reported the Dreadnought's arrival. The Overmind had decreed that the Terran Tempest must be broken before it could rally the frontier. The gathering. Storm weeks of pursuit brought the hurricane to the fringes of the rift. Captain Ree stood on the bridge, his silhouette bathed in the flickering light of storm. Cells spooling across the viewport's periphery. Lieutenant Mara Vass busied herself at the tactical console, plotting safe corridors through the nebula's wild currents. Sensors still reading heavy ionic discharge. Vass reported, visibility limited to 30,000 kilometers. Weapon systems? Optimal, but targeting accuracy will suffer. Ree nodded, tracing the nebula's outline. We expected this. Sable, what's the Collective's disposition? Sable's tone was clipped, electronic. Overmind's flagship CVA Dreadwing leads a formation of 8 Dreadnought-class vessels, 15 battlecruisers, and 300 skimmer fighters. All ships maintain stealth envelopes until within weapons range. Ree's jaw set. They've learned from our tactics. We'll need more than blunt force. Prepare the Stormbreaker fusion matrix for variable discharge-phased blasts that can punch through their stealth field. His gaze flicked to the viewport. And remind me to thank the Overmind for hosting us in his own lightning show. 2. Into the maelstrom, the hurricane's prow cleaved the nebular gases. Plasma tendrils whipped across the deflector shields, setting them to coruscate in rippling patterns. Crew members steadied themselves as the ship rocked under ionic surges. "Bridge to engineering," Ree called. "Pulse frequency synced with shield harmonics, yes?" In the bowels of the ship, Dr. Arya Celine monitored the hyperstorm reactor. "Shield stable. Reactor can sustain pulsed output at 8-second intervals. Warning, sustained firing will. Push core stability to 85%. Ree allowed a wry smile. Then fire in 8-second storms. He turned to Vass. "Deploy decoy drones ahead of the vanguard. Let Dreadwing waste its alpha cannons on ghosts." Moments later, a cloud of 50 microdrone satellites detached and folded outward, cloaked in plasma scramblers. On the main screen, Admiral Tsoni's ships roused from stealth. Like spectral leviathans, they drifted into view organic hulls. Limbed with bioluminescent veins, angular silhouettes bristling with singularity torpedo tubes. "Drones away," Vass announced. The skimmer fighters surged forward, peeling off from the dreadnought wings to intercept. Turbolaser batteries ignited. Ree grasped the command rail. "Hold fire. Let them come." The fighters tore into the drone cloud, unleashing torrents of beam fire. One by one, the decoys ignited in superheated flares, but not before unmasking anti-air batteries hidden on Dreadwing's hull. The dreadnought flared its shields, pouring alpha cannon fire at the invisible swarm, and missed. Now, Ree barked. 3. The Stormbreaker's roar, the Hurricane's hull thrummed as energy diverted to the Stormbreaker cannon. Coils at the muzzle glowed violet-white, arcs of plasma dancing like captive lightning. At Ree's word, the cannon erupted. A pillar of raw hyperstorm energy lanced across the rift, cracking the nebular arc above Dreadwing like a cosmic whip. The dreadnought's shields buckled under the blast. Streaming fractures of bioplasma sizzled as they rebounded. In the wake, 2 battlecruisers shredded in mid-launch, their hulls inverted in a cascade of fiery debris, but the victory was fleeting. The Dreadwing's singularity torpedo banks opened. 3 black spheres rolled out of the launching tubes, each the size of a moonlet and trailing prismatic tendrils of space-time curvature. Evasive maneuvers. Vass cried. The Hurricane spun on its axis, gravitic thrusters firing in roaring pulses. 1 torpedo veered off into the nebula, consuming nearby plasma clouds in its voracious maw. The other 2 locked onto the Hurricane's aft flanks. "All power to rear shields," Ree ordered. Alarms blared as the torpedoes struck. The aft hull groaned. Plating buckled like wet paper. Bulkheads shuddered. System lights flickered. For an agonizing heartbeat, the Hurricane faltered. "Recompute." "Trajectory," Ree said quietly, voice steely. "Prepare phase shift countermeasure." Sable's voice was a steadying presence. "Phase shift coils charging, 90%. Engaged." The torpedoes passed harmlessly through the ship's destabilized field, veering off to implode. Harmlessly in the haze. 4. Dance of Titans. The engagement settled into a deadly ballet. Hurricane spun on broadside, unleashing gravity pulse barrages that tore holes through battlecruiser formations, while its starboard broadside phaser arrays painted streaks of red across the abyss. The Zera fleet responded in kind. Biomissile. Salvos arced in shimmering trails, and drone swarms surged to blind the Hurricane's sensor suite in the thick of battle. Captain Ree felt the familiar surge of adrenaline tempered by calculation. He observed patterns. Dreadwing always shifted left after its second singularity volley. He pinpointed that rhythm and forwarded targeting vectors to the gunnery officers. "Lock onto ventral thruster banks on Dreadwing," he instructed. "Prepare. Incendiary disruptor cannon. On my mark, fire." A volley of microfusion shells slammed into the dreadnought's thrusters. igniting fuel reserves in star-bright flares. The Dreadwing lurched, its nose dipping as plasma pumped from ruptured conduits. Ree seized the moment. Full power to the Stormbreaker, phased blast. For the third time, the hyperstorm cannon summoned its fury. This shot was different. Calibrated to ripple in 3 successive pulses, it gouged a trench through the Dreadwing's dorsal hull plating, exposing living core tendrils that writhed like starlight tendrils. The dreadnought shuddered, then drifted. Engine silent, its neural link to the Overmind severed. V. Aftermath and reckoning as the Dreadwing's shattered hull collapsed inward. The remaining Zera vessels faltered. Without their flagship's guidance, they wavered, some fleeing into the nebula's embrace, others launching a disorganized barrage before limping away. The Hurricane's shields knitted as adjutant drones flitted to repair microscopic breaches. Lieutenant Vass exhaled. All hostiles disengaging. They're retreating into the rift. Ree allowed himself a moment of silence. Report casualties. And damage? 6% hull integrity lost on ventral section. Reactor core at 78%. Shields at 62%. Casualties. 8 wounded, 2 KIA. Vass's tone was clinical but proud. Understood, Ree replied. He turned to the viewport, where the nebula's electrical storm pulsed in serene cycles. Sable, transmit a warning to the collective. Let the world know that no dark order can withstand the eye of a Terran hurricane. Sable acknowledged. Beneath the layers of code and protocols, the ship itself seemed to hum in satisfaction. In the eerie quiet that followed the storm of battle, Captain Ree felt the weight of what they had accomplished and the responsibility that lay ahead. The Zera would lick their wounds and return in greater force. But now, at least, the frontier had one moment of respite. Tomorrow, they would follow the retreating war host deeper into the rift or strike at the collective's outer defenses. But tonight, the Hurricane drifted in the shimmering haze of the Andromos Rift, victorious, battered, and unabashedly alive. Somewhere in the ship's core, the hyperstorm reactor thrummed its ceaseless song, readying itself for the storms yet to come. The Hurricane drifted into the pale gold halo of Sol Prime's star, its battered hull glowing with the reflection of a new dawn. 6 weeks had passed since the clash at the Androma's Rift, and word of the Dreadnought's triumph over the Zera. Flagship had galvanized the Federation and terrified its enemies. Yet beneath the gleaming veneers of victory lay scars that bore witness to both sacrifice and resolve. Homecoming, the docking clamps of the Terra orbital defense station engaged with a muted thud. In the cavernous hangar bay, technicians in emerald coveralls swung around the Hurricane's hull, sealing breaches and patching scorched armor plating. The scent of ozone and welding plasma hung in the air, mingling with the metallic tang of fresh coolant. On the bridge, Captain Jonas Ree stood silent before the viewscreen, observing the flurry of repair traffic. Beside him, Lieutenant Mara Vass reviewed the final damage assessments. "We've restored structural integrity to 91%, she reported, voice measured. Shields recalibrated, Stormbreaker coil resonance optimized. The reactor Dr. Celine reports core stability at 100% nominal." Ree inclined his head. "Good. Send my thanks to the engineering teams and make sure the crew gets shore leave as soon as possible. They've earned it." He turned as the hatch hissed open. Dr. Aria Celine entered, arms folded, her field jacket streaked with fine soot. "Core diagnostics confirm what you already know," she said. "The Hurricane is sound and hungry for the next test." Ree offered her a wry smile. "If we have to save the galaxy again, I'm glad it's under your oversight." Aria's lips quirked upward. "Just try not to blow it up this time, Captain." 2. Farewell to the fallen beneath the station's memorial dome, a glass sphere. Floating above a terraced garden rows of crystalline plinths bore the names of every Terran who had given their life aboard the Hurricane. Luminescent glyphs traced each name, and halal drifted in the artificial breeze. Captain Ree stood before two plinths etched with delicate precision. Petty Officer Lin Zhao and Lieutenant Commander Rafael Costa, both lost to the Dreadwings. Final counterstrike. Lieutenant Vass placed a hand on his shoulder. "They fought bravely," she said softly. Ree nodded, voice hushed. "They did more than fight. They held the line so we could win the war." He turned to the assembled crew survivors, family members, and station personnel, whose quiet. Candles floated in the domed center. "We owe them our tomorrow," he continued. "And tomorrow, I vow, we will honor their sacrifice." Arya stepped forward, her scientific detachment melting into genuine grief. She placed a white halal at the base of the plinths. "Their names will live in every calculation we make, every test bed we build," she whispered. A choir of soft voices rose a lament resonating through the dome. And as the symphony of remembrance swelled, Ree allowed himself a moment of stillness. A captain against the stars, honoring souls now part of the cosmic tapestry. 3. An unexpected council 2 days later. In the Grand Council Chamber of Sol Prime's capital, Captain Ree, Lieutenant Vass, and Dr. Selene stood before Chancellor Vega and a gathering of Federation senators. Holodisplays mapped the frontier, dotted with worlds now freed from piracy and Zyra encroachment. Chancellor Vega's silver hair caught the midday sun through stained glass windows. "Captain," she began, voice formal, "your actions have reshaped the balance of power. The Senate wishes to formally endorse continued production of the Hurricane class. But there is an alternate proposal." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Senator Myrick of Elysium Prime rose. "With respect, Chancellor, a single dreadnought, even one as formidable as Hurricane, is a point solution. We propose a task force, a squadron, of Storm-class vessels augmented by stealth frigates and hypervelocity corvettes. A mobile strike force capable of rapid response." Dr. Selene's brow furrowed. "Designing and building an entire squadron would take years. I cannot guarantee hyperstorm reactor stability at scale so soon." Senator Myrick offered a diplomatic smile. "Advances in reactor miniaturization indicate feasibility. With Dr. Selene's expertise and Captain Ree's operational data, we can accelerate development. The frontier demands constant vigilance." Ree weighed the senator's words. Across the chamber, the senators of the coastal systems and industrial clusters nodded in agreement. The lesson of the frontier was clear. Power concentrated in one ship was a vulnerability dot at last. Ree spoke. "If our goal is to safeguard the frontier against every threat, pirates, Zira, or unknown forces, then we must strike a balance between superior firepower and distributed presence. I will support a rapid prototype program for an initial task group, provided it's built on the Hurricane's tested core technologies." The chamber fell silent, then erupted in applause. Vega smiled, relief shining in her gray eyes. "So, it shall be. Captain Ree, Dr. Selene, prepare your proposals for the Senate's review. Lieutenant Vass, you will oversee the integration task group." 4. Embers of rebellion that evening. Back aboard the Hurricane, Ree and Vass reviewed intelligence briefings in the tactical center. Sable's synthetic voice provided updates on frontier security. Pirate enclaves in the Arcturian expanse were in retreat. Merchant convoys reported record transit times. Several neutral systems petitioned for Federation protectorates. "Encouraging," Vass said. "Yet intel suggests the Zyra Collective is rallying too. They've established a forward staging area in the Typhon Nebula far, enough to rebuild their fleet, close enough to threaten Algorak's sector." Ree leaned forward, fingertips steepled. We can't ignore that. If they break out early, we'll be facing another Dreadwing-class warhost before our prototypes can launch. Vast tapped a hollow node. Reconnaissance drones report as suspected. Seed forge hidden near the nebula's core. It's heavily shielded, but if we can infiltrate and disable it, we'd slow their shipbuilding by decades. A plan began to form. A surgical strike, Ree mused. Hurricane, some stealth corvettes, and a team led by LT. Commander Arlo Felix was my systems lead. He knows the reactor's vulnerabilities. He turned to Sable. Plot a course to Typhon Nebula. We move at dawn. Dawn of a new era in the pre-dawn stillness. The Hurricane slipped free of the defense station's docking bay. Beyond the hangar doors, Sol Prime's horizon glowed faintly. It was the moment Ree had longed for, the calm before the storm. On the bridge, the crew fell silent as Captain Ree addressed them. Every victory we've won has been built on courage, sacrifice, and the faith of those who believed a better tomorrow was possible. Today, we begin forging that tomorrow, not just for the frontier, but for every world that calls the Federation home. Lieutenant Vass activated the hyperstorm drives. The coils thrummed, harmonizing with the beats of countless hearts on deck. Dr. Celine watched from the rear bulkhead, her eyes reflecting the ship's violet glow. She thought of the prototypes to come, the lessons embedded in Hurricane's scars, and the generations of engineers who would follow her lead. The dreadnought surged forward. Outside the viewport, Sol Prime's sun crested the horizon, its first rays igniting the ship's holographic emblem, the stylized storm, cloud within a triangle dot. As Hurricane cut through the void toward the Typhon Nebula, the galaxy awakened to a new reality, one where humanity's tempest was not a solitary monument of might, but the vanguard of an enduring coalition. The frontier would know vigilance, justice, and hope, and wherever shadows gathered, the storm would follow Dot in the silent expanse ahead. The stars shimmered, and the Hurricane's hyperstorm reactor thrummed its eternal vow to stand against the dark, to become the shield of worlds, and to herald the dawn of an era shaped by the unrelenting power of a Terran hurricane.